Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today at Juanette's Crafting Corner for my Slow Stitch Saturday. So I'm continuing to stitch my Juanette's Crafting Corner that is going to go onto my Still Life project. But then I think that project is going to be pretty much completed. But what I thought I would do for a new series so that you guys could follow along and maybe stitch also. I thought we would do a snippet roll together. And so what I'm going to do is show you one of the snippet rolls that I stitched. And what I'm going to do is I think that's in focus. A snippet roll is something that you stitch that you start maybe in one area and you keep adding layers on. You add maybe some buttons, some different stitches, some different kinds of fabrics or different textiles. This is some cheesecloth. This was from an old sock. And then you do different kind of stitches. These are called seed stitches. You might add some labels, again, different buttons. And on this one, I did a specific color theme. I did purple. You can see here I stitched a little coffee cup there with looking some steam out there. Here's a little sewing machine button that I stitched on there. This was some specific lace here. A yo-yo there. This was some felting back in there. Oops, I'm sorry. I hope you guys. But that's the end of it there. And so it rolls up onto this antique spool. Let me just finish rolling it up. And then it ties, it closes with this little bit of lace here onto this button here. And that keeps it closed and it sits on a desk. And then I have another one here. This is one that I purchased from a friend, Pam from Pandora's Junk Journals, and that's how she has it. She made this in 2023. She does not attach her string onto the end of it, but she does have a button here. But let me just show you what she did. And so it looks like she did yellows and blues here. She's got, again, some Suffolk puffs there, a little ladybug there. Again, like so many of us do, using buttons to create a flower garden. This is some fabric that I bought in Italy and I sent it to her. She apparently had bought some and she added some here. Here she has a J that she stitched on there, and it looks like it is a basket. And then she did all these little French knots in here on top of the basket. Lots of lace down here. And then she also attached the end of it. And so those are two examples. One of the other things that I've done, if you don't have one of these spools, and I have several of them, I think I bought them from an Etsy store. And let me just kind of back you out so you're not so close. And make sure you're still in focus. So these I bought off of an Etsy store, but you don't need them. These are about 3 inches, 3¼ inches in height. I think when I bought them, they came with this many, but you do not have to have that. Here's one where this is one that I have been, it was a lot longer, and I have been cutting off of it, pieces of it, and adding it to journals. But I just stitched this little loop of ribbon here and it hangs, but it was a lot longer. I'll just eventually, or sometimes just cut off a piece and add it to a journal. So you don't need those spools. You can use something like this. Now here you guys have seen this before. And this is what made me decide to do this. This was a project that I did in 2023. It was called Down the Garden Path. And we received a prompt every 2 weeks. And then in this back pocket is where I have typed up and put in the prompts. Now, you can do this big of a project if you want, but I'm not going to. So this is the start of it. So the prompts were, first was wildflowers. And then I decided to add this cottage here. And I even have a clothesline here with a little bit of fabric to make it look like there's clothes laying on there. I did some stitching of some circular things here, different sizes and different ways to cut it. That was blue to make it look like clouds. I have a chimney here. This is supposed to represent some smoke there. And then the next prompt was garden gate or secret door. And I did a garden gate. And here's my path here. And then the next prompt, and I put it way down here on the piece, was a shed or a greenhouse. And I decided to do a shed. I've got some trim here. This is the way it comes. This trim is already floral like this, and I just stitched it on there. I've got some garden pots here, some flowers here, French knots here. I did a little hat there. This was pretty intense doing all of this stitching, but again, it was fun. You don't have to do this of intense of a thing. The next prompt was flower pots, and so I've got some over here with some beading things that almost look like stones. Let's see, visitors in the garden. I have a butterfly here, some bees there, another butterfly there, a frog there. And then let's see, next was a garden seat or a bench, and I decided to do a bench. And then I did some flowers all around the bench. A tree or a birdhouse, and I did a tree here, but I also did a birdhouse, so I did both. And so do you see how this is just scraps of fabric? And so the thing about slow stitching, it is not perfect. Needle turn applique is very precise and perfect. Slow stitching is not. So that's why I enjoy it. Here's my tree here with a lot of French knots, a little bird with a nest, sitting on a nest there, a tire swing. Let's see, favorite flowers. I think that's what I did here. I love wisteria, and I think that's what I did there. Those were my favorite flowers. The next thing was a birdhouse or a bird bath. So there's my birdhouse. Did I do a bird bath? I don't think I did. That must have been what I did. Here was the birdhouse there. And then the next prompt was birdhouse or a bird. No, the next one was a fountain or a fish pond. And here I did a fish pond. And what I did again, I did some stones, some beads around it. I did blue fabric in there, just stitched a couple of little things that make it look like fish there. I did some beading here to make it look like it was waterfall, water going over the rocks like a waterfall, some green beads here, a little bit of different threads here that were green that made it look like maybe grass stuck in there. And then my next prompt was choose your own, and I decided to do the title and the year. So I stitched down the garden path. Here's some more little things here, a little butterfly, a button. I did a little scarecrow there. There's my vegetable garden here with some corn, some turnips, carrots, cauliflower, and radishes there. And so I've got little bits of lace tucked in here, some lace there, doilies, more flowers up here, all kinds of different like pieces of handkerchief. I have a bird here that I thread painted. So we will not do something as elaborate as this. Look at here. I took this old piece of a quilt there and I hung it so it looked like it was underneath the tree. Like I said, the tires swing there. So these are just examples of what you can do. And so what you need to gather if you want to join in on this project with me, and it will be fun. Like I said, every week I will give you a new prompt or a new stitch to do. And so this is what I'm going to start out with. I'm going to start out with just a piece of fabric. I'm going to use one of these spools to wrap mine around, but you don't have to use a spool. So don't go out and buy them if you don't want to. I want this to be a project for people who have never slow stitched or done much stitching. I want it to be easy for you, and I don't want you to have to go out and purchase a lot of things. This fabric here is it's a little bit over 2 inches, like 2¼ inches. And let's see how long it is. But I may add to it. It is 30 inches long. But we may add to it if I run out of room. What this is this fabric. It's just an old sheet that was dipped in coffee, instant coffee, to color it. It was probably started out as a white sheet. Most of us that do slow stitching like old stuff, stained stuff, things that is not perfect. We like these kind of raw edges. So my friend Carol Powers sent me this piece of fabric and I have been using it forever. But like I said, what you can do is take an old pillowcase, get yourself some instant coffee. You can get it at the Dollar Tree. Make a cup of coffee or 2 cups of coffee, dip your fabric in it, let it dry, and then go ahead and wash it, and it will have dyed your fabric. If you want to use just white fabric, use white fabric. But that's all this is. Or you can go to Walmart and buy some muslin. But what my point is, don't go out and spend any money if you don't have to, if you don't want to. So that's the fabric. Some other things you are going to need, of course, is needles. Now, once again, 1 or 2 needles is all you need. I sew a lot, so I have a bunch, but you don't need a lot. So a sewing needle, and then you need some thread. Now, once again, because I sew a lot, I have a lot of thread. This is just my DMC threads. It's a big box. And these are all my colors. Oh, let me open it up. Yeah. Here's all my colors on my threads. But if you want, just get one hank of DMC thread. And again, I think you can buy this at Walmart. I know you can buy it at, oh no, Joann's is out of business, but you can buy it in a lot of different places. So you just get a little bit of thread, or you can use just plain old sewing thread like this. I know I've got some here. Yes, this is just a ball of plain old beige sewing thread. Okay, so you're going to need that. If you want to use a hoop, get a little hoop. Let's see, even though this is too big for this hoop, you still can use it. You just lay it over your fabric, tighten it up, and it will help you hold your fabric as you stitch. The other thing you're going to need or want is scraps of fabric. I'm just reaching over here. This is a pile of fabrics that I have. Most of these are my Tim Holtz fabrics scraps, but you can use any scraps you have. Don't go buy a bunch of fabric. You only need a small amount. Here's some of my lovely fabric that I get from my friend Rachel from Roxy Creations, but just scraps of fabric. Go looking through your closet, and if there's any clothes that you no longer wear, tear them up, rip into them, because you don't need a lot of fabrics. You want a lot of variety. So you're going to need scraps of fabric. You're going to need buttons. And I've got a bunch of buttons. I've got them here in my craft room where they are just in little jars. Let me hold you up. My camera fell down a little bit, so it's not even. So I have different buttons, all different sizes. So once again, if you have an outfit that has buttons on it and you're no longer wearing that outfit, you've got buttons, so you don't need to go buy any. Old handkerchiefs. Go to a Goodwill store or a Deseret Industries and pick up doilies. I'm just bringing over a bunch of different doilies that I have here. And I've got scraps. Now, some of these are bigger ones. I've got a little bit of pink here if I want to add pink, but most of mine are like a beige color. So again, maybe just a little bit of lace. Once again, if you do want to buy some, let me pull off some of mine smaller ones. This is from, I think this is a Joann's. Let's see, but you can get these kinds of crocheted laces on these little rolls for a couple of dollars. You can get them at Walmart. So I suggest getting a little bit of lace. Again, shop at Goodwill or DI and pick up some doilies or different kinds of lace. Let's see. I think that's about all you're going to need. So let's do this project together. Like I said, every week I will teach you maybe a new stitch. I am not going to do a specific color scheme. I think I'm going to do multi-colors. I may have I may have an area that is blue, and then I may switch over to pink. Then I may switch over to purple. So, but you do whatever you want to do. Oh, ribbon, maybe some ribbons. Here's a piece I can see here. This was a piece of Stampin' Up! Ribbon. So ribbons, but anything, any textile. Let's see, I've got a drawer here where I've got a bunch of, here's my drawer of yo-yos. And I'll show you how to make these yo-yos. They're fun to put on. Let's see. I've got other things, scraps. So, you know, we might throw that on. I'm just digging in a drawer over here. This is my craft room. So let me just show you. This is what I keep off to the side in my craft room to use. So, you know, we might throw some of this brown sari silk on there, some tulle. Here's a ribbon that I got from somewhere, and I love that it had the H on there. Again, some just bits and bobs. Again, this is all kind of scrappy stuff. It's nothing expensive. It was nothing like that, you know, cost me a lot. So, you know, that here is cheesecloth. Now, what you can do is buy white cheesecloth. And then once again, I dip this in coffee to give it the brown color. But I've also gone in, now again, because I have a lot of inks and colors of ink, is I dyed this with blues and yellows. You know what this is? These are old laps from the operating room because it's got the blue lines through it. This, yeah, the blue lines there, because after they were done with whatever surgery, there's sometimes were clean laps left over, and I would just take them from the operating room and recycle them. So you can have that. Another thing you might want to get is some wool thread. And again, because I do a lot of sewing, I have so many different kinds of wool thread, but maybe when you're at church, just put out a feeler and ask people if they have any leftover wool thread, some scraps. You don't need a lot of it, maybe just a little bit to add a little different thread to your piece. You might want to get some silk ribbon because we might do a little bit of silk ribbon embroidery. But again, I do a lot of sewing. That's why I have so much. You could use any ribbon, but for silk embroidery, of course, silk ribbon is the best. So, but if we have a prompt where I use silk ribbon and you don't have any, just sew something else. Another thing you will need is some batting. to stitch onto the back of your fabric just to give it a little more stability. And this, again, you can buy at Walmart. It's quilt batting, and you're going to want to add it to the back of your fabric. And all you have to do is just stitch it on there, and that will give it a little bit more stability as we're creating maybe a scene on here. So you will want to get a little bit of batting. Again, you don't need a lot. So if there's somebody in your circle of friends or church, ask somebody if they're a quilter. Do they have any extra leftover batting? This is a bag of batting from my quilting days where, again, I just saved the scraps. And so I can use this. Quilters use those big, huge pieces. Most of them probably would throw this stuff away when they're done, but I always kept it because I also did other stitching and stuff. So you will need a little bit of batting. So this is what you're going to have to do to get ready for next week is prepare your base fabric. And as I was sitting here thinking about this project, I realized that the piece that I had originally pulled together to use is not long enough for me. So what I'm going to do is add on another piece of this muslin or sheet fabric. And so all I've done is ripped it to about the same size. That's perfect. And then I'm going to stitch it together. Let's see. I thought I had a needle. Yeah, I did have a needle already with that plain thread, this thread right here. Very simple, plain thread. And thread your needle. Now, I'm going to show you a quilter's knot. I've showed you this before, but it's the best knot for tying a knot at the end of your thread. You take your needle and you have it horizontal. You lay your thread, the end of your other thread, over the top of it. And I'm just going to tap that to make sure it's in focus. Then you wrap it around a couple of times, push it down toward the end between your index finger and your thumb. You grab a hold of this end of the needle. You've got your thread bunched up between those two fingers, and you're just going to slide it off the end. Continue sliding to the end, and you'll have a knot at the end of that thread. Very easy to do. So what I'm going to do is stitch these two together. And all I'm going to do is lay them next to each other, on top of each other. And I'm just going to do a couple of running stitches back and forth to put these two together. Now, it doesn't quite matter if my stitches are perfect, because again, this is slow stitching. They don't have to be perfect. And because we're going to be putting other fabrics and laces and buttons over the top, the stitching doesn't have to be really close. But what I can do is do a couple of lines. My needle came unthreaded. Let's see, do I have a needle threader close by? Of course I don't. Yeah, that was pretty easy. Okay, there we go. So then I feel that that is still a little bit too far spaced in between there. So I'm just going to go back and do some stitches over the top of them just to make that a little bit stronger. I don't want that to fall apart. So, yeah. So many people gave me advice about my leg cramp situation. And a couple of the ideas I did know about. One is the pickle juice. And you could buy at Walmart pickle juice in a bottle, just the pickle juice itself. And so I have some of that. And then somebody else suggested mustard, but I don't like mustard, um, except for on a hot dog or a bologna sandwich. And then I only like a little bit. So I'm not so sure if I could take in a tablespoon of mustard. So, okay, so that is done. And then what I will do is take this over to my iron. I will open this up and iron that seam down like that. So I'll be back. Okay, so do you see how that works? Because I joined those together and then I ironed the seam down. Then you have kind of a seamless line there. The next thing I'm going to do is add my batting to the back here. And it's a pretty wide piece, but I'm going to keep it wide to begin with. And I'm just going to pin my fabric onto it, and then I will trim it afterwards. So I'm just going to lay it down there and bring some pins in and pin it, sew it down, and then I will trim it. So that's one of the things you need to do between this Saturday and next Saturday is get your piece ready. Because like I said, next Saturday I will do the first prompt or our first stitch where I will teach you a stitch. Let me move that out of the way. Yeah, this is long batting. It's quite long because it was probably from a quilt that I had made at some point. So yeah, let's see. So yes, the leg cramps. And it's funny. So now it's been a couple of days. I think it's been 3 days. We'll see. Thursday, I told you about it. It's been several days. I haven't had any leg cramps since I had like 3 nights in a row where I just was dying, and then now no leg cramps. So I don't know what the deal is. It it's hard to know. Oh, so yeah. So I'm going to continue pinning this off camera, and then I will be back and I will start the stitching and just give you guys you may be avid stitchers and sewed in the past, or you may not know anything about it. I'm going to take it like as if you've never sewed before. So we'll go from there. So I went ahead and started stitching my batting onto this my base fabric. And I know in some countries they call it wadding. So it's either batting or wadding. And you don't have to worry about the size of the stitches. These are called basting stitches. And it's just being able to adhere one fabric onto another, and all of these stitches are going to actually more than likely be hidden with our other stitches and our fabrics and our lace and our buttons. The other thing I have done is I created a Facebook group because I want to be able to see your projects and what you're stitching. So you guys will be able to post on the Facebook group your project and what you're doing. So I created the Facebook group. It's called Juanette's Slow Stitch Saturday. And so come over and join so I can see what you guys are stitching. So do you see how, if you look real close, hopefully, let's see if we can get this to, yeah. Do you see how those are not real close together? They're far apart. So it doesn't matter. It's basically just making sure that the wadding or batting is adhered to my base piece. And then I'm going to tie this off, and then I'm going to trim it. The other thing you probably want to have is a good pair of scissors. You don't necessarily have to have a good pair, but again, because I was a quilter, I've got good scissors. Okay, so that is done. And so then now I'm not going to stick myself with pins as I stitch. So this is basted on here. And now I'm going to trim it. So yes, come over and join the Facebook group. I'm excited about this new project. I want to see what you guys do. That's the one thing about my YouTube channel. You know, a lot of people will tell me that they have been making a journal similar to mine, but I never get to see pictures of them. And so that's the reason I did the Facebook group. I want to see your creative endeavors. This is long. I may have gotten pretty rambunctious here in creating this big old long piece. As I'm cutting it, I'm like, this is long. That's all right. I don't know how long this project is going to go for. I haven't decided yet. Oops. So it can go as long as I want, or if I want to, if it's getting too long, I'll just cut off what when I'm done, when I'm tired of stitching. I'm never tired of stitching. I love stitching. I love paper crafting, and I love sewing. Okay, now let's do the other side. Tap you. And yeah, so this is what you guys have to do between now and next week. Get your Get your snippet ready to sew on. And I hope you guys join me. It's going to be pretty slow paced. We're only going to do one prompt a week. It's small areas, so it shouldn't take you long. You may get impatient and be like, well, can we have more than one prompt a week? But I've got so many other things going on. I've got my journal making videos. I've still got to finish my daughter's bowl, her vessel for the cabin. I may have told you guys she went ahead and bought something else to put on the coffee table because she goes, Mom, you're taking too long. But I will get it done. I promise. I will get it done. But that's why I'm not doing the Roxy Creations new project that they're doing. I just thought, no, I've got too many other irons in the fire to do. Okay, so there we go. That is what you guys have to do this week. So thank you so much for joining me today at my Slow Stitch Saturday. Go over and join the Facebook group Juanette's Slow Stitch Saturday. Type that into Facebook and it should come up. I will try to also put a link in this video for it. But anyway, thanks so much for joining me, and I will see you guys on Tuesday for Medieval Mirage Timeless Treasure Tuesday. Thanks and bye-bye.